If you have been enjoying listening to the stories of entrepreneurs across Edinburgh, then why not subscribe? If you're on YouTube, you can hit the red button down below and hit the bell to get notifications. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then subscribe to the podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Sean, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for the invite.
So just give us a snapshot of your business. What do you do?
Yeah, so we've businesses Rollo Developments and with the division Timbex Creations. We predominantly work in the domestic construction market, doing high-end renovations, extensions, recently into new builds and manufacturing.
Amazing. So how did this all start? Take us back.
How far will we go? We'll take it back to, we'll go when I left school, essentially started my apprenticeship. Well, started looking for an apprenticeship, which was very hard to come by. And basically spent a Friday with my dad driving around manufacturing companies because I wanted to be a manufacturing joiner. Driving around companies, walking in and asking for a job. I think it took 30, 40 different places until somebody eventually gave in and gave me that opportunity.
So literally driving around with your dad, he'd drop you off, you'd knock on the door.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, my friends slag me for this, but I made a table in CDT at school. I'd done a pretty good job of it, and it was quite impressive, I suppose, from coming out of school and be able to deliver what I'd done at the time. And I was carrying this table around with me and going into workshops. A couple of them we laughs here and there, but then a couple of them were like, "Oh, that's pretty good." And then that's essentially how I got my first job.
And how old were you at this point?
15. Yeah, I just left before I was 16.
And okay, how does a 15-year-old almost pluck up the courage to just walk in with a table? Because I'm not being funny, it's pretty impressive, I think.
Oh, no, well, it was very nerve-wracking because, but I suppose you didn't know any different. You were naive to what the real world was. You had to be guided I was guided a lot by my dad, who had been in the trade all his life, and he says you've got to learn to have that confidence to go in there and sell yourself. But I was only at the first job for maybe 4 or 5 months before I got offered an opportunity at a local manufacturing firm called Coastcraft. So I made the decision to move. It was local to home and great reputation. And that's where I ended up serving my apprenticeship in the end.
Great. And before we move on to kind of the really important stuff, have you still got that table? Where is it now?
I do.
Oh, that's cool.
I do have that table. It's in the attic in my garage.
Is it?
It is. I should really take it out.
You should actually. That should be pride of place somewhere.
I turned the legs on the lathe and inserted different types of hardwood to make a chessboard and a drawer with dovetail joints and stuff. And I suppose doing that at school was a bit better than the traditional shelf or spatula.
Yeah, that'd be a great coffee table as you come in. Like such a story. Do you know?
I
love
suppose
that.
Yeah. Maybe have to think about that.
Yeah. So after that, you're at you're doing your apprenticeship.
Yeah.
What was the point where you were then like, oh, actually, I want to start a business? Was that the next step or?
Not really. So I got let go when my apprenticeship had finished, but it was just after the kind of crash, 2008, 2009. And I just kind of organically went into working with my dad because nobody was really taking it on. But what I'd done was I came out of a workshop environment where, your tolerances were next to nothing. Precision work, manufacturing, windows, doors, staircases. We'd done a lot of bar work, shop fit work, bespoke pieces of furniture, to then going on to a site and needing to learn a different discipline. There's joinery on site is a completely different art compared to in the workshop, or the other way about as such.
Why is that?
So in the workshop, your tolerances are nothing. You're building bespoke pieces that need to be perfect. Whereas on sites, I suppose the speed, the detail, it all still matters, but your tolerances change. And it was like learning a different trade. Again, going out on site and having to understand roofs and building extensions and kits and actually working in old buildings versus on a perfectly flat bench within a workshop. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. But what it did do, it was my dad kind of gave me opportunity to start running projects and kind of chucked me in the deep end a little bit, which I'm very grateful for now because it's helped. But at the time when you were 21, you were like, oh, it was quite difficult and hard when you were having to put in a lot of hours and weekend work and stuff when your friends were out. Or don't get me wrong, we still managed to have the balance of social life, but it felt like a lot of pressure at the time.
Do you remember like that first time going in, you know, starting to take over projects with guys you were maybe working alongside with before, and then you're starting to lead projects? Like, what was that? Because if you're 21 leading projects, like, that's quite young compared to...
Yeah, and I think that I had the opportunity because it was my dad's business.
But did that make it worse?
In some instances, because you'd have staff that were in their 50s, 60s, guys that had worked with them for years, and you know, you would get the odd comment like, you're only doing this because your dad's business, and that's the truth. Yeah, but, like, you know, it is what it is. So we just kept pushing on. But the thing is, it was good at my job, so like I did get the respect. It wasn't like I just left school and all of a sudden they've got the answer to a young kid. You know, I could still deliver what I said I could do. So it had its difficult points working within the family business, and of course working within a family business has its pains anyway and its stresses, but it all worked out in the end. And like fast forward now, like we've got my dad who's a project supervisor on board with us, and my brother who's a working foreman, and we had a couple of guys that came from his business to us as well, and I just wanted to try and give my dad back a better lifestyle as he starts to, you know, get older.
Brilliant. And so, okay, so how, at what point did we get to Rollo?
Rollo. So Rollo started in 2015. And I think it's like any business. Well, you know the book E-Myth. It's like businesses start with a skill set. Like, you've got a skill set of being a joiner. Decided I wanted to go and do something myself. So made the plunge. It was just me, a van. And I think within a few months we employed our first member of staff. No direction, no clue what you were doing. And then you start wearing those 10 hats that you realise, all right, you're no longer a joiner. You've now got to be your accountant. You've got to be the salesperson. You've got to learn how to estimate, quality control, customer service, learn how to even purchase a van. All these things that took time. So you were thinking you were going to become self-employed, be a business owner, get all your time back. Then all of a sudden, you're 7 days a week, you're 12 hours a day. Remember sitting pricing till 3 a.m. because you had to work through the day. And at that point, I didn't know where I wanted to take it. I just know I wanted to work for myself.
So how did you end up with the E-Myth book in your hand?
I think it was a recommendation actually through, I was with Action Coach for a while, and it was a recommendation from my coach at the time, Tony Hoskins.
Okay.
And I've read it multiple times, audio book, because it takes me back to the start.
It's often the first book that an owner reads, isn't it? Because it's an obvious one, because the penny drops. It's like, that book's about me.
Yeah, I mean, it resonates with every part of business.
Yeah.
And you can picture yourself in that position, being that busy fool, and realising very quickly, if you want to get out of that sort of hamster wheel, you need to learn the art of delegation and building that team around you. But to be honest, that only probably came in year 5 for us, because it was the unknown and the risk factor. You were needing to take that step up and be willing to have the responsibility of employing a bigger team and taking on more risk financially. But you make that decision, I suppose, if you either do it or you don't. And we made the decision to sort of scale up.
Do you remember that kind of thought of like, oh, I'm going to have to come off the tools?
I can't remember it, no. I feel like it just happened organically. I realised that sort of trading my time doing the physical work wasn't going to allow us to grow the company. And I needed to realise that it wasn't just about the work that you could invoice for. So like me going and fit a kitchen, for example, yes, I could invoice for that physical work, but then what other elements of the business would be affected? And what was more important? So do you employ a joiner to fit that kitchen while you work on the next sale or you work on the next process? And that's kind of how the business kind of organically started to grow, by challenging myself on, am I spending my time in the right place?
So where did you know, in terms of the evolution that you've kind of had since you started, almost from that 15-year-old lad that with the table under your arm to, you know, you don't get to where you've got to without just learning tons of different things and try, you know, so where did the education come from? How do you learn the lessons to move you on to the next stage?
There's not like a point that's sticking out to me. Like I've dipped into different aspects. Like I joined Action Coach.
Yeah.
I got a coach for a period of 6 months to try and see if that's what I needed. But if I'm completely honest, I don't think I was ready for that. Because I'm a great believer if you get a coach and they're trying to mentor you and point you in the right direction, if you're not ready to put the work in, it's not going to work. And I think back then I just seen it as a cost. And I was like, this is a cost that I don't need. That could be a tradesman. Looking back now, my mindset's completely changed on like coaching and reinvesting in yourself and learning. But I think naturally I just started to delegate the things that I wasn't great at. So things like bookkeeping. Yeah. I wanted to learn it and understand it, but I didn't want to do it. It didn't excite me. But it's a task that needed done that was important. So I would learn what I needed to do for the basics, and then I would find the people around me to deliver it. And then what's happened then is that's then allowed me to work on the things that I wanted to work on, like relationships and growing the business and sort of developing our brand. That's been a big part of it as well.
See, it sounds so obvious when you say it, right? But the amount of struggles that people have letting go of those things and think, oh, I have to be over everything. But you've managed to master that, right?
Mastered it now. It was tough though.
Yeah.
And I think you get to different stages in the business where the first hurdle is just getting that first employee, and then you're delegating that employee. But as you scale up and you get to much more people, like we're sitting with a team around about 30 just now, a few more starting, and that's our internal team, our sort of vetted subcontracted team, as well above 100 people now. So the delegation has to be there, but then, right, the quality aspect of it. So is that job going to get done to the standard that you're saying that you can deliver it to? And how do we put the process in to check that? But I think the hardest stuff to delegate for me was, say, when it came to, say, pricing, to make sure, like, I still quality check the pricing just now, but it's like, right, you're putting your trust into, say, an external QS, because we couldn't afford to employ at the time. So we were outsourcing our QS fees, spending a lot of money on QS fees, and we're like, right, but what if they've missed something? So that was really hard to get my head around, how I delegate something. You get a price back of hundreds of thousands of pounds, and you're like, what if they've missed 10%? Like, that could fold us. So, and then as we started to scale up and we were still delegating that out, you were getting prices back, approaching £500,000, £700,000 worth of tenders. Like, what if they've missed 20%? I kept like questioning myself on, right, like, can I trust that process, or do I need to do it myself? But then always look back to, well, if I go back into the pricing, then I'm not going to be able to scale the business and do the things that I want to be doing.
So what did you do then? Did you just go with it? Or just
winged it. Just winged it.
But it worked out though, eh?
Yeah.
Or did you get stung at all?
I mean, I think there's been elements of you can't be profitable in every aspect of a job, and be willing to accept that. Like, human error, like, things can be missed, but just started to look at the business in a different angle. Like, instead of day to day, week to week, started looking month to month, then started to looking quarter to quarter, and just working closely with our finance team as we've got to where we're at now, to realise that there's dips and troughs in business, and you just have to learn to kind of ride the wave.
It feels like a very common point for trades to kind of get to that 25, 30 person. You got a great team underneath. You got a good office team, but that one last thing is that kind of quotes, pricing. It feels like a real sticking point.
It is a sticking point, but we're there. We've now got in-house estimation, so we don't outsource it. So we've got a lot more control over all our tenders and the detail that we put into them. And what we always do when we're costing a project, tendering a project, is we allow all our subcontractors to price the work. We don't ever estimate the work. We don't ever give our subcontractors the price to work to. We think it's, subcontractors want three things. They want good work, they want paid on time, and they want to be paid what they want to be paid. And if you can nail those three things with subcontractors, they've got your back. And that's something I feel that we've pretty much mastered. Pretty confident that most of our subcontractors would back me up on that. So now when we're submitting prices, because we've got in-house estimation, we're going out for fixed prices on materials, fixed prices on subcontracted elements. We know our in-house costs. We're very accurate with all that. So when we're submitting a tender now, I'm actually really confident that it's right. And if we have made a wee error, then we ride the wave and we'll claw it back.
And so you obviously know what the subcontractor team want. What about customers? What do customers want in your world?
Customers, I think the biggest thing they want, which lacks in our industry, is communication. And we've done a lot on customer journey internally as a team to be like, what does our customer want? And they want cost certainty. They want to know what they're going to pay for a job, and they don't want it to double in price. And that can be achieved by being very transparent with them throughout the whole pricing process, working to proper fixed contracts, giving them confidence that there's no money getting paid up front. It's always in arrears, and we're only going to be valuing the work that we've completed. We're never going to be asking for, 40, 50,000 pounds for work that's not done, which means that they're always in the driving seat, so they always feel safe. Which is quite important. They obviously want quality work. They want projects delivered well, safely. But I think most importantly, we're predominantly working domestic, so we're working with homeowners. So we try and understand what them as a family need, and really work closely, try and involve them. We've got a beautiful office now where they can come in, have a coffee, chat about their project, discuss their main objectives, see if there's any things that we can advise them on to make the process less stressful for them. And I think that's worked well, just involving the client more.
Well, what are some of the things that clients have said to you then that's really pleased you, at the end of that journey?
Yeah, I think the attention to detail with the communication, like there's always issues, I suppose in any line of business or work, but there's a lot of variables that go into construction, and there's a lot of people involved, and things do go wrong, but there's always a solution to a problem, and we never shy away from that. So feedback's always been like if there is an issue, like the guys deal with it. They're very complimentary of our team and how pleasant they come across, and how well mannered they are, and I think it's just the level of care that our clients notice that we give, which is nice for us to get that feedback. But essentially, a customer that's spending a lot of money on their home, it's a scary thing for them to commit to. They're signing a contract. They've maybe never signed a contract before. They're giving their house over for us to pull walls down and extend, and it's a scary thing. So I think we need to try and bring them on this journey and make the journey seamless and nice and pleasant for them. And when things go wrong, is be their sort of backbone to support them. Yeah. How
important then has the brand played in it? Because you've been on quite a journey of quite a colourful past of branding. So, talk us through the decision and the reasons why you kind of ended up where you have. So the brand started as Sean Rollo Joinery, and that was it. We very quickly sort of moved from that. So people just, like our first sort of type of clients were letting agents. We would go in, do maintenance, fit kitchens, bathrooms, and we very quickly started to get asked to do bigger renovation works. We started to build some relationships with architects, which again, naturally the projects started to get bigger. And then they said, can you organise the electrician, the plumber, and all that? And very quickly we realised the brand didn't really suit what we were capable of doing, that we didn't have a sort of marketing budget or a big budget to change brands. So we just dropped the Sean and just kept the Rollo and added developments in, but we were very bright and green and in your face. We had tigers on the back of vans.
We had an old lady on the front of a car that said, in need of a renovation, ?
What was the tiger got to do with it?
Nothing. I just seen a photo of a tiger on Google and stuck an iPad in his hand, and it had a list of all our trades. And that's the thing, like the brand's developed so much, because I look back at some of the old images of vehicles, or even some of the marketing stuff we've done, and it's part of the story. But we very quickly, well, not too quickly, I suppose, maybe year 5, we developed into the more sleek corporate Rollo Developments brand, where we dropped all colour, went quite sleek, black, grey. We didn't list what we'd done on our vans. We wanted the brand to speak for itself. Spent a bit of time on Instagram, and I suppose bringing people on the journey through Instagram and through socials. We were one of the first to start doing a lot of video work with our projects and taking people on walkthroughs. And I think our very first video that we done on Facebook, like maybe 5-6 years ago, was like 40,000-50,000 views. And at the time, it was like, for us, like, oh wow, like we're starting to make a bit of traction within Edinburgh.
And okay, obviously we're sat here with Alex. Alex runs a video content business as well. What got you into video then? You were one of the first.
Yeah, it was. I started working with Square Foot.
Right.
Yeah, I just I seen some of the work they were doing, and they were doing two products, Scene in 30 and Scene in 60. Right. So it's 30-second video, 60-second video. Okay. And I thought it might be quite cool to do a walk around till our project's finished. And that's basically it. I just seen it and thought, I want to do that. And we started building more content around it, and made the sort of journey seem real online. Show the sort of dirty foundations when it's at groundwork stage to the nice polished finish, at photograph stage. So I think, the content's played a part in us building our brand, and the feedback on the content is it feels like it's coming from a real place. It's not too polished.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we've, just before we started, there were so many things we were like, oh yeah, I know that because I saw it on your LinkedIn, or I saw that on your Instagram. And it's just funny like how you do actually see it. And we probably didn't engage with every post, and you've seen stuff of us that you didn't engage with every post, but it still got seen. And it's like, I think the interesting is measuring the value, and that's part of probably the brand exercise as well. It's like, well, you probably spent a decent chunk on rebranding, that whole process. It's like, what value did you get? And you're like, I don't necessarily know, but I know it added value,
Yeah, like how do you measure it? How do you measure the importance of the brand change? It's a difficult one, but like we don't use socials as a sales tool. We just use it to stay relevant. And that's we're never salesy. We just post what we do, and like we had a client recently who had actually just followed us for a couple of years and just says, we feel like we already know you, we want to work with you. And that's quite nice when you don't go into a tender process, because people just want to work with your brand, which that's fills you full of warmth, because you're like, well, you've built something that people trust by not actually selling hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the old phrase, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And I think it's a long game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Come the time, right, we're ready to go to Rollo. Brilliant.
Yeah.
One of the things you said earlier on there was this idea of you started to work with architects and you got into bigger projects. So can I just ask, did the architects come to you? Did you go to them? I mean, because they're obviously a good source of good quality projects, I guess. So.
Yeah, of course. So I think that we knew that we needed to start diving into the architect world, because it was going from your organic, because they knew you were a tradesman or you'd done this, here's a job, to like, right, how are we going to build a pipeline? How are we going to secure the bigger projects and start to build a rapport with good quality architects? I mean, there's a lot of brilliant architects within Edinburgh and the Lothians. And the difficult thing with architects is when you initially go to them, it's what's your track record, like what's your portfolio like, and at the start you don't have it. You don't have it. They've just got to put their trust in you, and a couple really did. One of them being Starren Architects. They were our first architect we worked with, James and Ian. You know them actually, don't you? Yeah. So they were our first architect that gave us quite a few projects, which was great, and then it built from there. And now I think we're working at we get 30 inquiries a month now from architects, maybe 20 to 30 from direct clients. So it's a good level of inquiries considering the sort of size of the projects.
Yeah.
So now they organically come to us. I would say right at the start, we probably had to put a bit of effort in to go and sell ourselves, which we still do now, because there's a lot of architects that we've not worked with that we would love to work with as well.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? Okay, so what's your approach then to if you've got your eye on wanting to work with a particular architect? How do you make the approach?
Well, I suppose now, back then you had that imposter syndrome where you didn't know if you were credible enough to approach a certain architect. And then as soon as we got work under our belt with Starren, we felt, right, well, we've done it, we've delivered it. So now we're a lot more confident to reach out to architects and say, like, this is who we are, this is what we do. Can we have a coffee? It's as simple as that.
I can't help but think, do you walk into their place with a table under your arm saying, look what I can do?
No. The table's not out anymore.
But I mean, it's funny though, because you are with all your projects, like that's it. But the point is like that very first job, you walk in with like, well, here's the proof, and it's like that's what you have now. It's just like
relatable, yeah. So like, instead of the table under the arm, now we've got like a portfolio 9 years plus of work under our belt that we can showcase.
Yeah.
What are some of the key learnings that you would take out of your career so far?
The importance of team is big for me. I think the building of a team can be difficult because of the risk. You're employing people and they're then sometimes feel like your responsibility. If you're having a difficult month or a difficult quarter, they're still your responsibility. But what I've learned is building the right team around me. Like the team just now we've got are incredible, and they actually make the business run. Now, like a lot of them are key links in the chain that if one of those links went, it would affect the running of the operations and the back end of the business. So like key learnings for me, I never usually focused on employing the right people. I used to need someone, find them, employ them without too much thought process. Now when I'm thinking about different aspects of the business and where we want to go, it needs to be the right person, but not just their skill set. They need to be the right person, like the right personality, the willingness to take on a vision and adapt to the Rollo brand and the Rollo way of working, because skills I feel that can be taught.
So how do you do it then? Because what you're saying there is kind of hire the attitude, train the skill, really. But what's your kind of gift, if you like, in that area? Because you've obviously got much better at it.
Yeah. I think our interview process is very conversational.
Yeah.
It's we sit down and we have a chat. We want to understand them as a person. And I suppose this is more like back end or say management. Like we recently just went through a process where our contracts manager left after being with me over 10 years. And we've now had to go through that interview process of quite a high-tiered member of staff. And it was actually quite humbling, the amount of people that applied for the job that worked for some really high-end companies, thinking like they want to make the move to Rollo, which was really great. But we didn't go down that route. We've ended up employing someone who's never been in the role before, but they came across incredible in the interview. We've known them from working with them, and they've got the right skills that they're going to be able to adapt and put into the role and make it their own. So some people would say, well, you've employed a contracts manager that's never done it. But actually, contracts management, for me anyway, is being able to take information in, delegate it and make sure it's executed. And this person that we've employed really holds a lot of values that I really admire, and I think they're going to be great for the team. And we literally went off track. We didn't go down the route of qualifications. We didn't go down the route of track record, because I don't necessarily feel that that's a must in any role within our business. Obviously, with the tradesman, they need to be qualified and they need to know how to do their job. But I think with management, you need to bring a certain set of skills that doesn't always come off a qualification.
As your business has evolved as well, and obviously you've grown the team, you're kind of recruiting, way better as well. It feels like you've also stuck to what you know. You haven't just branched out and tried to kind of do all trades. Well, what's your angle on that?
Well, I suppose as a main contractor, we are all trades, but we've focused the internal team on joinery, builders, and internal management. We've built the internal management team we built it up quite robust early on, and I think I mentioned to you earlier we were quite top heavy for a period of time where the sales and the site team didn't actually match the infrastructure that we had built top end. But actually, once we got a lot of the systems in place and the processes in place, it allowed us to grow at a faster rate. We managed to add 7 figures to our turnover in 12 months by just having the right management structure in place. That does in turn show its cracks, increasing that much, I suppose, in a short period of time. But because the team were in place, we had solutions, and the team have really gelled and basically grabbed the bull, you know what I mean, and executed what we've said we're going to do.
And so where are you going then? What's the plan?
So recently, we've been trying for a wee bit of time to get into bespoke new builds, and without a portfolio or track record, that's difficult. We've tendered for a few and we've lost out to companies that have been doing it for years. But this year we were fortunate enough to secure our first bespoke new build house that we kicked off in March, I think it was, which is already, through posting on socials, led to further opportunities for bespoke new builds, which is the power of social media. So I think the future, we won't take the eye off the ball with the extensions, the renovations and the manufacturing. But it's certainly an area that we're going to push as the new build sector for bespoke one-off houses.
Why? You just want to, because it's cool?
It's just always been something I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
I suppose there's no reason for it, albeit I do find it an easier process. Because when you're working on old properties in Edinburgh, there's a lot of variables you've got to take into account, like even, doing a simple extension and propping the back of an existing house up, and you're doing a lot of work within existing properties that the cost can be wrong if you don't get it right, or the groundworks can become an issue. Whereas with new builds, you're getting to put your stamp on something, you build a new design, and I suppose for me, handing over a family home that they're going to use in its entirety, it's just something different that I've always wanted to do. So it's great to finally be given that opportunity to build the first home.
I can't help but just notice the kind of the you just need a chance, don't you? It's like when you get your first job, when the Starring guys give you the first, their first jobs, and then this new build as well. It's all about first.
And it's like back to my view on recruitment, right? Just because you've not done the job doesn't mean you can't do it. You've always got to get an opportunity, I think. And if you have that skill set, albeit you've maybe not done that exact thing, who's to say you can't do it? So because we like to give people opportunity, maybe that's the universe talking that it's came back to us, and we're getting that opportunity to do that. But it's going great, and the clients are really happy, and we're really enjoying the process of it.
You talked earlier on about the power of a network.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about what you mean by that. So
I never used to believe in it. Like right at the start, I didn't really understand what networking was or the power of network. So only the last sort of few years that I've really zoned in on building the right people around me, because you just never know when you need to lean on them. And LinkedIn's been massive for that. It's really good, but it's definitely something that I think that people underestimate is the power of your network, and building a team around you that you might not necessarily need in the interim. But when you do, you've had that conversation, you've made that contact, and more recently, as we've started to grow, there's been questions needing answered or advice given, or it could be down to the simple fact. I remember when we started to scale up our fleet of vans, And we were like, right, how are we going to fund them all? You know, we put a post on LinkedIn, and the same person got tagged like 5-6 times, and he came in and just asset funded our whole fleet. And it just came from LinkedIn, the network. Now he's just the go-to. So the power of network's huge, I think. It's something that I think people starting in business, if they start at the beginning, really growing that network and putting the time and effort into people, it can really benefit you going forward.
Yeah, amazing. There was a question around Timbex as well. So you have this side hustle, but, you know, like that's become like a big part of Rollo. Tell us the story of Timbex Creations.
Yeah, so back to where I sort of started is I started on the bench. That's where I done my apprenticeship, and there was obviously a passion for manufacturing and making bespoke items out of timber. And with the type of business that we have with Rollo Developments, there's always manufacturing required. Windows, doors, staircases, bespoke one-off pieces of furniture. And we always used to subcontract that to a company called Coastcraft that I served my time with. And they ended up closing down. And we got a phone call from Graham, who I served my time with. He had been there 22 years to basically say he'd been made redundant. And he says, so you won't be able to bring your manufacturing here any longer. So came off the phone, went back to him and says, would you come and work for us if we set something up? And he was like, well, if you find the place, and we managed to get machinery and everything like that. So I was like, well, we'll make it work. So we found the premises. We went back to Coastcraft where I served my time. We purchased all their machinery, all their kit. And one go just basically says, look, we'll take everything. And we still hadn't signed the lease yet, but we had bought all the kit. So that was a scary point, thinking, right, what are we going to do now? But we got that over the line. Graham came and set up the workshop for us, and we brought it internally. We set it up as a separate brand, Timbex Creations, so that it attracted outside business as well as just complementing Rollo Developments. So Timbex Creations, as I said, they'll do all the bespoke elements, Rollo's jobs from windows right through staircases, one-off pieces of furniture. In Edinburgh, there's a lot of times we need to run bespoke architraves or skirtings, or even match details within these period properties that we can now deliver in-house. So we've grown that. It's not a massive setup, but there's 3 guys full-time in there. And they're doing well.
What kind of benefit has it had having that in-house?
So it gives you control over all the sort of bespoke elements. It's back to, you know, subcontracting's fine and outsourcing's fine, but you do have more control when it's in-house. And it also gives the clients the opportunity to come in and discuss the elements that they want input in. The design, like, you know, if they want bespoke wardrobes or they want a nice boot room for them so that when they come in, their nice vestibule, they can sit down, and they want to be involved. And part of that customer journey is they love actually coming in and being able to see the stuff in the process of being manufactured, which is great to see. And they like getting involved and touching and picking materials, and it's just another sort of string to the bow.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier your dad took you around when you were a 15-year-old lad to get fine. He took you on a trip around Edinburgh, I guess, right? And then we spoke earlier about how you took your dad on a trip but around Europe. Just what did that mean to you?
Well,
why was that important?
I remember when I left school, he took me to Italy, to the MotoGP. The whole family's big into motorbikes and racing, and that was a great experience, travelling to Italy on the back of a motorbike at that age, and always wanted to, I suppose, potentially repay that. And I basically said to him, right, we're going to do Europe just before COVID hit, to be honest, and it never happened because of COVID. But looking back now, we wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, because when we eventually did go last year, the business was operating without us. Everything was in place. We went away for just over 2 weeks. We travelled 8 countries across Europe, stayed in all these different hotels, seen loads of different towns that we would never have seen. we made a sort of rule, if we were driving for say 40, 45 minutes, no matter where we were at that point in the road, we'd pull off and go into like local wee towns, have a coffee. And it was just nice to be able to do that. And we came back and everything was fine. And it was actually a point in business I thought, we've actually built something that works. But it was great to be able to do that for him and see how happy it made him being able to go away. And hopefully we'll manage to do it again.
Congratulations on that, by the way. To get, to have a business like that works without you. When you return, it's still functioning, still delivering good stuff. I mean, that is something to be proud of, to be fair.
Yeah. No, it felt good. It really did feel good. And the team were great. Like, you can't fault them. They knew it was important to us, so they gave us the time to do it. And it was just, it went too quick. It's like anything. But we'll definitely be planning, something like that again, whether it's as full on. I think we've done just over 2,500 miles. Some of the days were quite long, but we stopped. The end point was Monaco. We stopped in Monaco for 2 nights because my brother races at British Superbikes, and one of his sponsors lives in Monaco. So as a wee surprise, he has a wee sort of day boat in the harbour in Monaco. He took us out in the Monaco harbour for the day, a few beers, and we were swimming in the sea. Took us out to a couple of sort of private clubs at night where we wouldn't have experienced before. And we had dinner looking over the start-finish line of the F1 track, and it was just great. And knowing that this is all operating back home was kind of like, it made it all worth it at that time.
Yeah, amazing. We ask all of our guests, what is your guiding principle in business?
Back to the network. When you're starting out in business, really don't underestimate the value of network and really build on that. But also, I'll add is find the balance, I think. Like, I know there's a lot of people that will say, if you want to make it, you need to grind. I think I'm a believer in trying to get that balance with family, friends, and work, because I actually think if you get it right, it goes in your favour for business because you operate at a better level.
Amazing. Sean, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, and we wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Well done. Brilliant.